Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Ashley Hicks, Kyle Schrum, and Joe Courtney. Everyone, how's it going?
Guten Tag.
Did you know that we are the largest podcast that services garage gyms in the world?
No.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Specifically?
We're not the largest podcast in the world, though. There has to be like, you got to throw that in. 4 garage gym athletes, for home gyms. We could go home gym.
Okay.
We're coming for you, Joe Rogan.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, once we get that Spotify contract, we'll all
it's all over.
No.
It's all over.
Imagine if we had that kind of power, because Joe Rogan mentioned something on his podcast and he like actually changes how people like vote in states and stuff. Yeah. And so we could be like, Peloton sucks, and then just crash their stock. Wouldn't that be, that's a goal. Just official.
Their stock's already crashing enough on their own right now, but.
Well, there you go.
I feel like we should attack CrossFit first and then go to Peloton.
Well, you know, I'm giving CrossFit another chance, not the modality, but the company. The company really sucked under Greg Glassman, and I'm giving them a second chance. Again, I'm hoping they change the definition, move away from high intensity. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe after they listen to today's podcast, they will change their minds, because, you know, CrossFit HQ is sitting around waiting for Garage Gym Athlete episodes to drop and basing their big business decisions off of that. So let's get into it. The study is Slow and Steady or Hard and Fast, a systematic review and meta-analysis of studies comparing body composition changes between interval training and moderate intensity continuous training. So this study compared the effect of high intensity interval exercise and moderate intensity continuous exercise on changes in fat mass and fat-free mass. And that's almost all you need to know. I do want to point out that systematic review, meta-analysis, this is typically what we can pull from these studies is a lot more definitive than some of the other studies that we cover. Sometimes we jump into other studies and it's like there were 14 people who hadn't trained and here's the result. And what those studies do is they kind of just shine a light in a particular area. It's not necessarily scientific fact, especially with how science goes these days. It's just shining a light in a certain direction. But when you get into a meta-analysis, a systematic review, you're getting closer to scientific fact, because they have to look at so many different studies. They have an inclusion, exclusion criteria, and they really pull out, you know, if they've done a good job, some really solid information that you can rely on a little bit more. Not to say that you can't rely on the other studies. It's just they're not as in depth as these are typically. So they looked at a bunch of studies, ended up with 54 for the analysis. And let's just jump into, I don't really need to read why they did it, right? Like we kind of know. They just wanted to look at more high intensity cardio versus moderate and see if it had any change or difference in your muscle mass, how much fat you would lose, things like that.
Body comp.
Should I jump to the spoiler?
Ooh.
Well, yeah. I mean, doesn't matter that much. There we go. That's the takeaway.
Done.
There we go.
Well.
Doesn't matter that much because I have a lot of other stuff to say. So let's just get that out of the way. Doesn't matter that much, but I think there's a lot more to unpack than that. What did all of you find interesting about this study, if anything?
I think this was, I guess, good to take at face value, and another way to have people not overthink training and to a certain extent, like this is the way you have to do things. This is the absolute way you have to do things. So this study was kind of helps in that regard, because you shouldn't be dogmatic about one thing versus another. So if you're especially fat burning, because there's so many different ways to do it, losing weight, and when nutrition gets into it. Also, why I think you take it at face value is because each of these studies wasn't very long. I think I saw, if I right, the longest study was like 12 weeks for fat loss, and like
minimum was 4.
Yeah. So, which I don't know how much fat loss like is happening then. I guess if you're just really burning it, but as we've covered in the past with high intensity and stuff, that's more of a long-term effect. And, also why we deload once a month, because of long-term effects and rest. So that's also why I say take it at face value, because it was a little bit in a way short-sighted, but so it'd be interesting to see more longer studies with those. Having said that, it's also doesn't matter. I said it doesn't matter a ton. If you just want to move and lose some weight, I think it is a good way to say, like, hey, if you're doing strength training and you need to get some conditioning, burn some fat, then choose whichever one you're going to do more and enjoy more at first, and then from there work in the other that you're not doing. And this is also a tip of the cap for concurrent training, because it says, hey, you can do either one or both, and you're still going to be fine. You're still going to be able to lose fat, and you're still going to have the same hypertrophy, whether it's the hypertrophy gains you're going for. So that was my main takeaway, was that you shouldn't get overzealous about one type of conditioning or another, and that you should just do both, or whichever one you're going to stick with, and then work in the other. Kyle?
I'm going to let Ashley go next, actually, because I don't have a whole lot to say about the study itself. I just have some general things that I want to say about body composition in general. So I think Ashley has some actual study stuff that she wants to say. So I'm gonna let her go next.
I don't know. Jerred's looking like he's going to say something about it.
No, I
but-
just think we're getting very political, like, not actual political, but like a political stance.
right.
And I joke about it with you guys behind the scenes all the time, is like, here's what the study's talking about, but here's what I want to talk about. And this is what happens in like presidential debates. They're like, so what do you think on immigration? They're like, thank you. That's a great question. So I'm going to cut taxes, because that is the main thing that we need to do. It's all about taxes. And then, oh yeah, immigration is still important. It's like, you just talked about taxes that whole time, but we're starting to do that. And I think it's awesome, because we have important things to say.
Not wrong. I wouldn't run for president. There's that. Okay. So they were basically looking at intervals versus continuous training. And I just said about half of the participants in the study, I think they said it was around 60. The nutrition was controlled with them. And then if you looked at caloric deficit, there's like a table that's on here, and it talked about like there was 95% of them did not have a caloric deficit either. So, I mean, to me, like, what kind of nutrition controlled were you doing here? I don't know. Like, to me, I feel like if you're trying to lose weight, you would have some sort of caloric deficit. But,
Maybe they were trying to take the nutrition part out of it, saying, okay, even at the calories, the minimum calories that you should be having, or the baseline calories, then which one is going to burn more, versus crediting it to,
True.
They lost weight because of the deficit.
That's true. That's a good way to look at it. But 97% of these folks were untrained. And so that was also shocking to me that, they said they didn't see a difference, because typically, like we always say, like untrained people always see a faster result. But I guess because they were untrained, they lost like the same amount. Again, I'm pulling strings here. I'm just trying to pull stuff from the study here. But it sounds like to me that it was not thought out. Like the programming was not thought out. They talked about, they didn't really specify whether it was like sprint intervals or just high intent, like what they actually physically did. And so I said they didn't really program out the conditioning workouts, excuse me. So I said, if we threw in some resistance training, I bet those numbers would look way different. It's what, I thought here. And it doesn't change my thoughts on conditioning. I think conditioning is great. And I think you should do it. And the long-term benefits of conditioning are great. But also kind of along the lines that Joe said, you need to do what works with for you. So don't get caught up in, I have to only do, intervals because intervals are the way to go to lose weight or whatnot. Why do we do zone 2? Like, you know what I mean? I feel like every part of the conditioning is great. We talked about oxidative versus glycolytic and phosphagen. And like, I think you need to hit every single one of those things. And so maybe come to Garage Gym Athlete programming because we do think things through. That's just my takeaway for that. Kyle.
So yeah, the study has a pretty clear like conclusion, and for reasons that Joe and Ashley have said. I agree with you, Ashley. Like I don't think the different types of conditioning that we're looking at would make much of a difference if basically everybody you're studying is untrained. I think they're all going to make progress no matter what they're doing. So it would be cool to see what the literature has to say about people who've been training for a long time. And whether those differences, and if they had some resistance training in there too, I agree. I think it would have changed things up. But for me, with body composition, there's so much. And in the conclusion of the study, they actually gave this huge caveat of like, you need to have a dietary intervention. Like the nutrition is going to be the bigger portion of this more than the training. But just coming at it from a coaching perspective, having coached, a bunch of people in our community, and the vast majority of them have some kind of body composition goals. You know what I mean? When they come and they want coaching, like it's a big thing. It's a big thing that everybody, wants to work on. And so for me, with looking at the takeaway from the study of like, you can do high intensity stuff or moderate intensity stuff, and you're going to see results no matter what. Like, I get that. I get that. I mean, if you look, like bodybuilders have a lot of muscle definition. Professional CrossFitters have a lot of body muscle definition, and they train in completely different ways. You know what I mean? Bodybuilders aren't doing a whole lot of conditioning at all. CrossFitters are doing like almost exclusively conditioning with some strength training in there, thrown in there as well. But so yes, you can achieve things, but my thing with body composition is, where do your body composition goals come from? What is it that you're actually trying to achieve? You know what I mean? Are you trying to look like these people you see on social media? And this is kind of a bit of a fitness industry rant as well. We've been doing that a little more recently. But are you trying to look like those people? Because if you are, you need to reset your expectations a little bit and frame them properly. Because what you don't see on social media and what you don't see in these professional athletes, right, are the years and years and years that they've put into building the foundation. And so if you have not been putting in the stuff, the training time for a long period of time, then your body composition goals are going to need to be different than, I just want to look like this person, right? Because this person has been working on their body for years and years and years, and you're seeing the end result. And so I just think, like, the fitness industry has this deal where they're selling a lot of stuff to a lot of people, and it's tricking a lot of people. And I just really don't like that. And people have these unrealistic body composition goals. I'm not saying that our community has that. I'm just saying that just in general, people say, well, I want to look like this person. And then this person on Instagram is selling their 6 weeks to 6-pack abs course and all that kind of stuff. And they're doing their marketing on a beach, or at a poolside or something. And I'm just like, look, like, no, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that. So that's my little soapbox thing today of like, where do your body composition goals come from? Are you trying to look like these fitness professionals, or are you just trying to lose some, 10 or 12 pounds off your gut? You know what I mean? Because those things are different, and those goals are different, and the why behind those goals is different. And so, just everything that we say all the time, like even with body composition, it's a long-term play, and you're going to have to focus on it for the long term and be geared towards it for the long term. And so looking for short-term success is going to lead to disappointment. So that's kind of my rant for today. Examine your goals and where are your goals coming from, and are they short term or long term? Because they should be long term. That's what you need to be focused on. Jerred, I'm done.
Are you?
I'm done.
Jerred.
Rant over. Okay. I want to read from the study. I thought it's pretty funny. First off, if these group of scientists got together and they were like, "Hey, Jerred, here's what we want to do for the study," my response would be, "You're asking the wrong question." I'd say it in like a Yoda way too, like question, ask, wrong, incorrect, do
You just
over.
messed that up. No.
Yeah, sorry, I've never seen Star Wars, but all of you could help me out. I'm
just
kidding.
triggered so many
I've seen
people.
Star Wars. Don't like they got the unicorns and everything. Okay, so here's what the secondary finding was here. It says our findings also indicate that structured exercise only has minor effects on fat loss, regardless of intensity of effort and duration when performed at relatively modest doses. The amount of exercise required to achieve practically meaningful changes in this outcome seems to be unrealistic for most individuals. It is much easier to create an energy deficit from dietary restriction, which therefore should be the focus of weight loss interventions, blah, blah, blah. So they're basically saying you can't exercise enough to lose fat. That's what they're saying. That's one of their takeaways. They said it would be unrealistic for most people to achieve practically meaningful changes in outcomes for most individuals. So you cannot just out exercise your diet.
Bad diet. Yeah.
And all three of you hit on it in some capacity, like it should have been in there. But that's not what they were looking at. So I'm definitely not faulting them for that. But what you all kind of said was, what if they threw in some strength training? And that's where I would say they're asking the wrong question, because it's kind of silly to only look at that one thing. Granted, it's probably very hard to find a study on, concurrent training, fat-free mass and body mass and everything else. But if you just added some weights in here, everything changes dramatically, even in shorter time frames of 4 weeks, 12 weeks, something like that. I don't know if I have much else to point out from here. They said, the whole thing with high intensity is you can do it in less time. Same amount of work, less time.
Right.
And so, and that's why most people get into it. And then all these studies start coming out to where they're saying, and these are proven studies, are like legit, like you'll increase your VO2 max, you can lose body fat, and all that's true, right? You can do those things. And so HIIT became really popular, I would say, really in, I don't know, I going
Last
back
10
to
years, probably.
yeah, like maybe even a little further back, maybe 2005, 2006, I think that it started to gain a lot of popularity because it was like this new thing. But what's interesting, how long have we been saying that it might not be good? It's been several years.
Yeah.
And the only way that we have come to that conclusion, and me specifically, was anecdotally. I wasn't sitting around reading studies. I was just like, I was making connections between different studies. And then I was also seeing what was happening to athletes and other people. And I was just like, I don't have the science to back me up, but I just feel like we're on a bad path and things aren't working out. And normally if you don't have like a scientific study to stand on, people just think that you're wrong. And I've been told that a lot over the years, and multiple like direct messages on Instagram, emails, like there's been a lot of that, a lot less, I'd say recently. I'm not because everyone's like, they've figured out the truth. It's more, I think I don't post that much on social media anymore because I don't like social media arguments. I'm not going to change your mind if you believe that high intensity is the thing. But studies are coming out, and there's one that was done in, I think both of these are, this one is in May of 2021. Excessive exercise training causes mitochondrial function impairment and decreases glucose tolerance in healthy volunteers. So they investigate the dose response effects of exercise training in healthy subjects. And yeah, so screws up substantial mitochondrial respiratory impairment. Mitochondrial impairment is associated with impaired glucose tolerance. Despite excessive training, markers of global oxidative stress were unchanged. So this is 2021. They're basically saying, okay, yeah, like maybe this isn't so good. Maybe you're jacking up your metabolism. Maybe your mitochondria aren't functioning properly if you're doing all this stuff. Another decade-long study just looking at injuries, they initially found that, of course, people doing more exercise have more knee injuries, shoulder injuries, all this crap. They also found increases in nerve damage, internal organ injuries, concussions, puncture wounds, and dislocations, strains, and sprains. So we're getting beyond the like, oh yeah, I started high intensity interval training and I hurt my knee. And everyone's like, oh yeah, no duh, you just started working out and you didn't work out before. But now we're talking about nerve damage, internal organ injuries, all these other things coming up from high intensity interval training. And then we have another study. This one was done in March of 2021. They investigated the dose response, effective exercise and training healthy subjects. Same thing, mitochondrial problems, respiratory problems, heart problems, all sorts of stuff. And these things are coming online now. And I've read this in 2 books recently, and they say like the average time for like science to kind of definitively say something and then for it to be adopted, like say in the medical world, is almost 20 years. It's like somewhere between 15 and 20 years for the science to just straight up say, hey, this thing is probably bad for you, or this thing is probably good for you. It takes 20 years for it to come out of your doctor's mouth as fact, because of whatever the peer review process, their education. It also would depend on the doctor, right? Like whether or not they're reading new things, what they were taught has to make its way into medical school, all this stuff. So we're at the very front end of this. People are going to be saying high intensity is good for a long time. And because they have a good amount of data saying that, yeah, it can increase your VO2 max and it can decrease your fat mass and all this crap. But we're learning of the other side of that, and damaging your mitochondria, damaging your respiratory system, damaging your metabolism, causing heart problems and issues for people like arrhythmias and all sorts of stuff. And I think it's going to come out a lot more over the next couple of years. And so what they were looking at, again, if they were talking to me, I would say you're asking the wrong question, because I don't care that much about only fat-free mass or body fat mass. Like I don't care that much. Like give me the full picture of what's going to happen when I do training, when I train. If I'm in zone 5 for 40 minutes, 5 times a week, what's going to happen to me? And, not how much fat did I lose, because that's going to happen. Like when your body moves, you're going to lose fat. Okay. Like that's just going to happen. But what else comes with that? And I think that's what we need to be looking at, because the ultimate takeaway from the study is do whichever one you like more. If you have less time, do high intensity. If you have more time and you like running in zone 2, do that. And I can't agree with that conclusion, because it's too, it's not broad enough. It's too myopic. Like we can't really pull that away from here. So I think that it's good to hear really that zone 2 is not inferior to high intensity interval training for body composition. So we do know that. That's good to hear, because I know, like, I even saw someone in the group recently. I don't know if you guys saw that post about he's used to CrossFit and wants to be beat over the head a little bit more in garage gym athlete training. And that's just not what we do here. We do have our harder days and everything else. We're not simple and easy all the time. That's not how we work. But you have to look at the full picture of what your training is doing. And so that's kind of what I wanted to hit on today, is you have to look outside of, one thing. And I know people do this all the time. And that's why there are a million listicle articles about this like crap, like 7 benefits of high intensity interval training, 19 reasons why kettlebell training is the future, like all these crap. And they're looking at one thing, right? One thing. You can pull plenty of studies on it, easy to write. I could pump out one of these articles every single day if I had to. It's so easy, but it's not looking at the big picture. And so that's how I want people to feel comfort with their training, whether you're following our training or not. Start to look at things in a more broad sense, because there is a negative to every single positive thing that you do. Like what we are a part of is hormesis, right? So what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. These small doses that our body reacts to and gets improves on, but the dose makes the poison. Okay. And so all the things that we're doing are bad for us on a long enough timeline. Exercise in any capacity, even zone 2, is bad for you if done for too long. So if you're doing a zone 2 run for an hour today, cool. You're doing a zone 2 run for 19 hours, not good anymore. You know, so you have to know where the line is. Everything at some point has a negative repercussion that you have to be thinking about. And so you need to be thinking about that with your food, what you like water, like what you intake, air that you breathe, you know, training that you do, all of these things, your mental health, all these things. There's a good, there's a hormesis type effect, and then there's going to be a negative click over at some point. And so that's what I think everyone needs to be looking at.
Reminds me of ingredients, because he went over the section about coffee and how every other week the science was changing about coffee and all these articles about coffee. And then like one of my favorite quotes from that, I mean, I'll have the direct quote, but it was something to the effect of, you know, the right science versus science right now. And that's kind of what you just hit on, because it can always fluctuate from time to time, and whoever's writing the article, and then like you don't find stuff out truly for a long time.
And I feel like if people had a little bit more intuition, like I feel like we all have it. So let me say, if everyone listened to their intuition a little bit more, which can be a slippery slope, because if you have like that super like lazy, I shouldn't do anything intuitive nature,
right,
that's maybe don't listen to that guy. But there is, when you're doing something, you should just kind of know. I've been talking to my brother about it a lot, because I can't know, because he has so many injuries, how he even does movements. They don't look the same as if I were to be correcting an athlete with zero problems, right?
Right.
From his kettlebell swing to his squat to everything. And so I feel like we get to a good enough point after I teach him something, I'm like, that looks good to me, like given your limitations. I was like, but you have to tell me something. Like you have to know, like this doesn't feel right, because there really shouldn't be this like,
there's pain.
Pretty painful when I do this, but you know, I'm going to keep doing it. Like your body knows, like it's telling you, and you can adjust and make the necessary adjustments to get out of that pain and do things correctly. And that goes for basically everything that you're doing. I think, you know, when you get to zone 5 and you stay there for 15 minutes and you feel like death in a not so good way afterwards, that wasn't just like a good workout. There's something else was going on there, you know, maybe a little bit too much. Your heart was unable to relax and pump blood efficiently for that entire time. You know, like these things are your body's letting you know. So start listening to it more. All right. Joe wants to learn all about children.
Wow.
He's kind
How's
of
that
the
segue?
opposite. We're gonna leave that. We're gonna just leave that there.
How
We'll
about
just
them
end it right there.
apples?
All right, so we have a topic today. I found it awesome, fun to dive into. So we're talking
100%.
about things we want our kids to know. The top 2 things we want our kids to know in like health and fitness, right? And so did I get it right? That's the topic.
You did.
He made a face. Okay. So I guess we'll get into it. Jody, are you going, or I mean, I guess you are, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not just learning from the
I'm actually going to sit here and
make sure to take notes
and be like, oh man, is that really, they should know that?
You were writing notes down. I saw you.
Look, you get ideas. When you get ideas, you get ideas.
We actually want you to go first so we can pick apart what you think having
Oh
kids is like.
no.
No, we can't pick anything apart. Whatever he thinks his child should know is what his child should know. So do you want to go first, Joe?
That's fine. Yeah.
All right. We're just gonna do one, right? One each, then 2
yeah,
each.
that's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
So what I think kids should know and learn more about, and I know they do teach this to a certain extent, but I think it's not that great, and I think a lot of it needs to be done at home as well, is cooking and just being comfortable around the kitchen and putting food together and knowing things about food. And I know they have home ec in
mean,
school, and
That's what I was like. You
What?
didn't want to bake cookies in home ec.
I know exactly. It's like you go to home ec and it's like you bake cookies,
That's
and
it.
then you might hang out, and then you might do some stuff with canned food. Like they might teach you how to warm stuff up, but that's not like you really don't do much at all.
Warm stuff up.
Yeah.
Sorry,
We didn't even do that.
I didn't take home ec, but that would be funny if you're like, okay, take it out of the package, put it in the microwave, hit start.
I mean, I don't.
There will
put
be a
it
final
past them.
exam.
There's some people that need that. I bet there's people that don't know how to use a can opener. I mean, I would not be surprised.
Or boil water.
Does anybody still eat out of cans?
And so in high school, I took like 3 different kinds of cooking classes, and they got more advanced as you go. But like I grew up working in the kitchen.
What?
My dad's a chef, so like it's just
Look at
been
that.
invaluable over throughout life, and as you get older, because being able to put your own food together to save money, to be healthier, it's just having that flexibility versus always having to eat processed prepackaged stuff, always eating takeout. We still know adults in their late 30s or whatever that just order takeout all the time because they don't know how to cook. They don't feel like learning how to cook. And they're just like, yeah, I'm past that. We're just going to eat this instead. And it's just not good. And so I think, and while I say that the classroom, how it's like the home ec, how it's taught now isn't that great, is I think at home, if you learn how to cook, learning how you like to learn how to cook or things that you like to make, and then going from there and just kind of planting the seed and learning a little bit more over time. It's not really that hard to do. And then especially for our athletes, and if you start like an easy food prep, which I actually am thinking about making a video on, an easy food prep, just to teach for yourself and your kids, would do a lot in the long run, because sometimes cooking can be really intimidating, and there's can be a lot to it, but I think in the long run it'll benefit you for a long time. Because if you ever go places that isn't going to have, and I know kids now are even going to be more spoiled because of Uber Eats and DoorDash and all that stuff, and it's and they might go to places where these things aren't there, or it's just not available, and like you need to be able to learn how to have decent nutrition and put some food together.
Yeah, I wish I knew how to cook, for real.
So we'll teach Jerred first.
Open package.
You know enough to do your food prep.
I know that's it though. That's why I eat the same thing all the damn time. I'm like, okay, I learned this one trick, and this is what I'll keep doing. And it's normally Emily just teaches me something. I'll be like, hey, will you teach me how to cook this thing?
She's a phenomenal cook.
Well, yeah. So I'm lucky there. But like I'm trying to get her to teach me how to make biscuits right now. Because I
Salt
love
biscuits.
Oh no, here we go.
I would love to be able to make my own biscuits.
That's awesome.
She makes sourdough biscuits sometimes, but like not that often. I would like to make them like every other day.
You're just such in a rush for that chicken and biscuits.
They're delayed. They won't come around.
You would have no clue how to fry chicken, first of all.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous. All right, who's next?
All right, Kyle, would you like to go this time?
I would like to go this time. So when Joe first introduced the topic, it said, if we had to determine 2 things kids should be taught and learn, what would they be? So the first thing that came to mind was taxes, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about health and fitness. We rolled it down to our space. So to piggyback off of your cooking, mine is healthy food can still taste good, which is something that like when I was growing up, like healthy food was gross food. That's why we didn't eat it. So, and almost like healthy food was like a punishment. It's like, well, you don't get to eat this because you were a jerk, so you're going to eat the broccoli for dinner,
Are you serious?
So, that it wasn't actually that bad. It was just, I'm obviously like blowing that up a little bit.
I love Tennessee.
But anyway, man. Yeah, for real. It's soul food, man. Like I love it. Anyway, healthy food can still taste good. That's basically one thing that I wish people had like instilled in me more, and something we're instilling in our kids now is like, they don't really turn their nose up at vegetables, and it could be just because they they've been eating vegetables, their whole life so far, all 5 and 3 years of it. It's a normal thing, and we don't place these negative connotations around healthy food, or just vegetables in general, or, other healthy foods. It's like, we're eating this because it tastes good, but we're also eating it because it's healthy. So and it's good for us. So yeah. Ashley.
Well, it's also like, what was your parents' version of healthy? Because my parents did not cook fresh vegetables. Like, I'll be the first one to admit, I ate canned green beans as a child and I hated them. And I remember it wasn't until college that I got to Scott's parents' house and his mom made green beans with the meal. And I was just like, no green beans for me. I don't really like them. And she's like, I want you to try them. And I was like, these things are flipping. She like sauteed them with some balsamic and some onions and like made it so delicious. And I remember being like, this is fabulous. Anyways, going on a tangent there, but like, I thought all
spices, like salt and pepper.
I did not know that vegetables didn't come out of a can, kind of thing, and
yeah.
I go in the grocery store and I see them sitting there, but that's not what my parents picked. Anyways, speaking of that, so mine is grocery shopping. It all kind of like goes together. I think would be fun to like set up a classroom that is like a grocery store and teach the different, like, this is a protein, this is a vegetable, this is, this is a carbohydrate, this is a fat, and teach the different types of food. Like, I would say there's a lot of things as an adult that I, again, did not eat as a younger child, that I think are quite delicious. And I wish my parents would have put them in, in our meal plans, if you will, our meal prep. And I do this with Connor now, and he's 3 and he loves it. I pick it up and I'm like, hey, what's this, bud? And he tells me, this is a banana, this is this. And he thinks is the best thing ever. And he helps mommy check off the list and he puts it in my cart. And I also, again, Kyle, you said taxes. I think financial things are something that kids don't get. And this could also be you only buy what's on the list. Yeah, that thing that's on the side shelf may look good today, like those package of cookies, but we're not going to get those package of cookies today because this is what we need. And then we're going to stick to our list. So it's a double whammy.
100%.
Jerred.
All good things. Yeah, I was raised on zebra cakes. So
Little Debbie's, man.
I didn't come from a strong nutritional upbringing. So I think you guys
I'm more of a fudge round man myself. But yeah.
I like the Swiss.
Zebra cakes are good.
I don't even know what they all are. But they're
exclusively zebra cakes.
Zebra cake.
My mom bought zebra cakes, so whatever you guys want to introduce now, I'm not unaware of. But those are all good. You guys all hovered around the nutrition thing. I feel like I should have done that. Emily is actually doing a phenomenal job teaching our kids nutrition. I think they actually do know macros if you were to ask them, and she does a good job of teaching them like balancing out their macros, and to the point where it's becoming a little bit more intuitive for them. Like if they had a banana or cereal or something like that, they would like know that it's probably time to have some form of protein and things like. So she's doing a really good job of that. Again, not my area.
Can she write down this curriculum?
She should.
To be honest, I didn't think about it till you guys were talking. I'm like, I should have brought her on today, or at least gotten her take on it, because she's doing a phenomenal job of just teaching them all this stuff. And I'm just along for the ride. Like, I love eating healthy and everything else. And, but we all know, like, I'm more energy systems guy. I'm very into fitness. But I like eating healthy and doing that. But I just don't, it's not there. It's the passion. It's not there. And she takes care of that for me. So I really love her for it. But, so mine, my first one was daily over decades. And specifically, I think for most things in life, daily over decades goes a long way, but I think that's the biggest principle I want to get across to them is like continual practice will make you better at things. Sticking to things for a long time is the way to go. I really want them to understand daily over decades. And I would love for them to take away that how most people, and I would say even most people listening to this podcast right now, is fitness is treated as another to-do list item, like something that you need to do, you need to check off. I do not view it as that, and I haven't for a long time. For me, it's like it's just part of being a human being in today's world. It's not an optional thing. It's not like, oh well, if I get around to it or if I feel like it. It's like I have a body. This body needs to be used if I want it to continue to function properly. So I'm going to have to move that body. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter what you do as much, but something needs to be done. Right. And that's what I want them to get, some sort of practice. I don't care if they're strong or fast. I don't care about performance. I just want them to have some practice and not treat it as, if I get around to it or if I have the time. It's more like, if you have 24 hours in the day, one of them has to be dedicated towards fitness. You fit everything else around that. Like if you have to cut work short or you have to, wake up early or whatever, like you just do it because it has to get done. It's not really an optional thing. And so that daily over decades approach to their fitness is something I would love for them to understand. And that's kind of what we do, especially like when summer kicks off. I work out at 2:00, 2 to 3. They will be there from 2 to 3 every single day that they are home. If they're not at a camp or doing something else, they will be with me for that hour. They don't even have to exercise. I don't care what they do. They can play, they can shoot hoops because right in front of my garage is a basketball goal. They could throw the football, they can lift a kettlebell, they can do whatever the hell they want. I don't care. They're going to watch me and my brother exercise for an hour every day, every summer. And that's all I really care about them seeing. And then them also doing activity during that time period. And so that's just like, these are small ways that I'm brainwashing my children to be better humans. So that's number one for me. Back to you, Joe.
So mine kind of still stays with the nutrition side. It's kind of the easiest one to go with at first for kids, because it'll just have so much of an impact. But it also would be almost like level 2 to Ashley's, and that's marketing and like marketing terms and like what all of these things are slapped on and why they actually don't mean that much, like all natural and gluten-free and all this stuff. Like, yeah, all these things. And like, there's so many marketing terms and traps out there that will get you, and just how labels are constructed, and just, and this isn't just nutrition, but in marketing in general, how you need to see through that whole glare, that not, I won't completely say the ruse, but like what the lines are that companies can structure their labels and everything off of, because I think it's very useful. And instead of just like, hey, you need to go this because you saw an ad for this and it says, oh well, gluten-free is good, so I'm just going to go to the store and buy gluten-free, but that's not the case. So like marketing, and then a little bit of label reading, I guess that would kind of go into what you're saying. But marketing terms in general, like even when we read our a lot of our books, when authors go into that, I always find it fascinating and awesome to learn how these standards are met, because like you might think it's being controlled by a certain organization, but their parameters are very loose or very low. The bar is very low for them to state this. So that to me is useful. It would be maybe a little bit for the older crowd. But I just still think it'd be good for kids and a lot of people to learn.
So mine's going to kind of follow Jerred's. And actually I got this one from Hannah. I asked Hannah this question, and so I kind of cheated. I only picked one, and then I got one from her, so I didn't pick two. But
she's an actual educator, so I think that's a good thing.
She is, and that's part of why I asked her. Like, she spends a lot of time around kids every day. So, what do you think they should know? But what she said was, fitness and exercise should never be used as punishment. It should be positive and fun. And it's a lot of what Jerred said as well, just like, get out and throw the football around, or go and run somewhere. I'm not going to run with you, but you can go run if you want. But it shouldn't be used as punishment. And that's something that really kind of held me back as well, which part of it was just my personal mindset. But when I was playing football in school, and I think part of why I hate running so much today is because I was just conditioned to hate it when I was a football player, because it was used almost exclusively as punishment. And it wasn't presented to me as, again, part of this was just my mindset around it in general, but also it wasn't presented to me as, this is going to make you better. Like, we're doing this to get better at the sport that we're playing. It was, hey, you screwed up, you're running sprints after practice, or, things like that. And I was just like, so I wound up not really enjoying it, that much. And so then once football was over, it kind of, fitness just disappeared for me because I just wasn't interested in it beyond football anymore. So I really identified with that, and that meant a lot to me when she said that. But yeah, fitness and exercise should be fun and positive. It should not be used as a punishment.
Yeah, it's funny because we ran suicides when I was in soccer, and that was always like a punishment too. And so every time we do the death by 10 meters, it always makes me think of
flashbacks. Oh no. Oh no.
Seriously. So I also, for my second one, went with fitness. I said PE would be so different if I taught it. I taught for 4 years, and I don't know, I just feel like all the crazy things that they do with kids, and it's kind of like, I guess we'll do this today. And it just depends,
class,
right?
We played dodgeball.
I mean, dodgeball was a blast.
4 years of high school. That's all we did in PE. We played dodgeball.
They tried that in my school, and I started a petition, but we already went over that story.
Oh, gracious. I said the lesson plans would be structured. So it would be more like programming almost. And with littles, even with little elementary kids, like, you can do body weight stuff. You can do fun little challenges. For example, instead of doing suicides as punishment or whatnot, it could be red light, green light, except you get to control the green light and the red light, right? So green light, you're going to go for 20 seconds. Your red light's going to be 10. And there you have like a little Tabata of whatever it is. Green light, you're going to go and you're going to do burpees, and you just got to get creative. I also said for kids, I think it would be great to do a wrap up of what you did and kind of explain it a little bit. You can also do it in little layman's terms, but I guarantee you those little kids, they're sponges. They're going to soak it all up. And if you say, like, we did a long run today, and a long run works this and yada, yada, you're going to have another kid that comes up to you and says, hey, we did another long thing today. Does this mean I'm still taxing this system? I guarantee you can teach them energy systems. Those little suckers are going to pick it up. Anyways, just from teaching before, they're super smart, and don't put it past them. Yeah, and it could be something simple, like you do some speed work, you do some strength work with your body, and you can teach them good little form. I think it's so cute. Like, Connor does push-ups with me. It's literally a roll-up. That's what it is. And exactly what Jerred said, like, he comes out with me every morning at 7 a.m. He may not do all the things that I do. He may be running around, riding his bike, doing what he does. But I think it's good for kids to be exposed to all these things. But as a PE teacher, I would actually kind of like to do that. Maybe in my midlife crisis job. We'll see.
I think the form would be huge too, especially when you need to get into high school and weightlifting, because like, kids don't ask for help. You don't want to be that person that asks for help and asks the old gym teacher.
Coaches don't know
something.
What they're doing. They really don't. Some might, but
actually like have individual lessons with the kid on how to lift something by form, so they don't actually have to ask, and then they will actually do it. Because like, I know as a kid, I was weak as hell in high school, and I never asked how to lift certain things. I just didn't lift because I knew I was weak, and I knew I was in front of a whole bunch of people, so I didn't want to look dumb. So I just didn't do it at all. And that's just basically how it works. But like, if there's more direct focus on, hey, you should lift it like this, and after a while you'll be able to lift more. But as long as you lift it like this is the good form, you look fine.
Do y'all remember sorry.
Have you ever seen a toddler squat?
Oh, perfect form.
It's perfect. It's perfect. So I almost feel like maybe by the time they get to high school, we're not having to teach them how to do it. Like, we just need to reinforce what they're already doing, and like make sure that they keep in, not let them develop bad habits like we have of not squatting anymore. Imagine how much different it would be if we did that. Like, this is the natural way they do it. Nobody teaches a toddler how to squat. They just walk up to something and they squat down and they do it, and it's perfect.
Yeah, I will say, I always cringe seeing people in the gym now when they go to squat and like their toes are completely out and their ankles are buckling like in and their knees are buckling in as they're squatting. I'm like, oh my God, I really want to help you right now, but I don't want to be that guy.
Slash the barbell would just fall. And
I also don't want to see you break your legs. So I'm just going to leave the gym now. I'm going to work out at home.
Jerred, what's your last one?
Sorry, my mind was running with all the things that you guys were saying. so many things I could have thrown in there, but I won't. So I'm very principled person. So you could probably tell that from what I would teach my kids. And so you probably can't spend more than an hour in the Moon household without hearing me say or Emily say, try harder. So we tell our kids to try harder all the time. And it kind of started, I don't want to say as a joke, but more like honestly, just try harder. We've talked about it on the podcast too, like just try harder. But if you really think about it, how many people are in terrible situations with their health? And the only reason they can't get out of it is because what they have to do to get out of it is a hard thing, because it's difficult. Like that's it. And so when I say try harder, I don't mean the Biggest Loser study. Like go beat yourself into the ground, try harder. That's not what I mean when I say try harder. I'm not saying do more. I'm not saying burn more calories. I'm saying try harder. And I actually came up with my own definition of what try harder means, because I really want to teach it as a principle to my children. And so my definition of try harder is an attempt in which failure would be unreasonable. So one more time, an attempt in which failure would be unreasonable. That's what try harder means to me now. So let's put that in the lens of almost anything. If I am failing a test on mathematics, algebra, whatever, say I'm not doing well. I'm a student. I'm not doing well in algebra. And I tell you to try harder. I'm not saying press the pen harder to the paper and, hit the calculator harder to try harder. I'm saying make an attempt in which failure would be unreasonable. Meaning, do I need to read 15 different study books on algebra? Do I need to get a tutor? Do I need to watch YouTube videos? When I've done all of these things, I've now established an attempt in which me failing would be unreasonable. If I still fail at that point, okay, I tried hard and I learned a lot in the process. Maybe this thing just isn't for me. Maybe I'm not actually good at it. But if you actually apply yourself to that level in almost anything, you're going to find out that you don't fail very much. And most of the time it has nothing to do, and this is just how my entire life has worked. I don't think that I've gotten anywhere that I have due to intelligence or some skill or talent. I just try hard, and I try harder than a lot of people. Anytime I've been in a competitive environment, going from college all the way through my active duty military career, if I beat anyone or everyone, it was only because I tried harder than everyone else. And they may have been way smarter. They may have, but that would be their weakness, right? They would be like, well, I didn't have to study for this test. Be like, I studied 19 hours for this test, but I got 100 and you got a 96. I tried harder than you. I made an attempt in which failure would be unreasonable. And that's what I want my kids to get when it comes to fitness, when it gets to nutrition, just life in general. When I say try harder, it's never about just this like, okay, well, I'm going to do the same thing over again and I'm just going to do it harder, whatever that means. Like, no. What would an attempt be in which failure is unreasonable? Think of that. Imagine that thing. And after you imagine it, attempt it. And if you still fail, then we can talk about what your options are from there. But the chances are you won't fail after you've tried harder in that capacity. And so that is a big principle I want my kids to get as they get older. They already know the term. They know it very well. And my kids also on I'd say daily or weekly basis, you hear them say things like kill comfort or try harder. These words are coming out of their mouth. And so a lot of those things are, and they're starting to actually understand and grasp the concept so well that we were going to some event and I mentioned not wanting to talk to people. Funny, right? Like I didn't want to talk to anybody at this event.
True, Jerred.
Yeah. And I was mentioning it
Just
to Emily.
tracks.
I was mentioning it to Emily. The kids are in the back. And I don't remember if it was Graham or William, but one of them said, Dad, well, sometimes you just have to kill some comfort.
Oh yeah.
Woo. My own words thrown back at me.
Mhm.
And he used it in the right capacity.
Right, because he knew what he knows what it means.
Yeah, everyone when they think kill comfort, they think, yeah, go ruck for the next 40 hours and like David Goggins. Like, no, dude, we're not even in the same
Right.
like
Means
platform.
full laundry.
Yeah. And so like killing comfort has to do with what's uncomfortable for you. Let's say it was Graham recognized that talking to people at this event was going to be uncomfortable for me. And he told me I needed to go kill some comfort. So the fact that those principles are starting to land and they're starting to understand them are huge for me. And I don't care so much about the little details of what I'm teaching them if I can get some of the bigger principles across, because I really think in raising children, you don't get the fine points across. Like Kyle jokingly mentioned taxes. Like I could sit them down and teach them how to do taxes and loopholes and workarounds and all this crap that I've learned, but it'd be super technical and they wouldn't remember half that crap, right? But if I can teach them principles like daily over decades, like try harder, like kill comfort, and there are only a few things, like I'm responsible for 3 or 4 things that I just want to teach them when they're grown, gone out of my house. I only have so many things that I want them to be responsible for. I feel like I will have succeeded at that point. And so that's what I try to get across, whether that's health, fitness, life. It's just principled action.
Love it. Speaking of, you can try harder with this guy coming up, Kyle.
So the Meet Yourself Saturday for this week is the best one that we have, in my objective opinion. There's no running. There's no conditioning of any sort. But it is the epitome.
I was like, what?
And you could run. So, I mean,
you could run if you want.
You could jog.
I don't. I know that's shocking to people. But this is the ultimate way to practice what Jerred was just talking about of trying harder and killing comfort. It is the Iron Mile. And so you're going to walk for a mile. Caveat, you have either a barbell or a yoke on your back. It has to be something iron. It cannot be a sandbag. It cannot be a ruck. It cannot be anything like that. It needs to be a barbell and it needs to have weight on it. It could be an empty barbell if this is your first time, but it needs to be a barbell. You're going to put that barbell on your back and you're going to complete 1 mile with that barbell on your back. As simple, not easy as it gets around here. So it is my favorite one. I love it when it comes up, and it's just so much comfort killed in one simple thing. You read that and you're like, man, this just doesn't, okay, whatever, cool. And then you get about halfway into this thing and you're like, I want to die. This is dumb. Why am I doing this? And so my tips are just go out and back. Don't do you could do this on a track, I guess. You might get make sure there's nobody else there. But
track would be way worse.
I would say out and back, do that. Just go a half a mile out, come back with it. And I say, don't put it down. Don't put the weight down. You're going to want to put the weight down. Don't do it. It just it takes so much more energy to get it back up and get it back onto your back and start walking again. Just don't do that. Just suck it up. And normally, and this is my tip every time. I normally have some music to suggest for the Meet Yourself Saturday. This one, no music. Don't do it. Wallow in your misery. Go to that dark place and just listen to the world around you. Listen to that. Don't try to drown out that self-talk that you're going to start. You're breathing hard, all those things. I usually do this early in the morning and walking through my neighborhood out here, and all the dogs in the neighborhood wake up because everybody in my neighborhood owns dogs. And so I wake up the whole neighborhood when I do this one. But it's just don't distract yourself with this one. Just live in it and go to that dark place. Anyway, sorry. I get fired up about this one. I like this one a lot. All right, Joe.
So is it actually in the rules that it has to be on your back, or you just have to carry it?
How else are you going to carry a barbell?
Overhead.
Front rack.
Way worse.
You want to
That
front
is
rack this thing?
awful. Oh
Go
my
for it.
gosh.
You just took a Jerred Moon approach to that. I like it.
I'm not
Let's
telling
front
you
rack
to,
this.
but there have been times where when I've been holding the bar back here, if my shoulders are clenched enough, I have moved it to the front rack just for a little bit because I think it shifts which muscles you're holding it with instead of actually setting it down.
So
I have done that as like a break.
The official
really quick.
breakdown that is written in Team Builder, put something on your back.
Yeah, I was like,
Whether it
has
is
to
an
be your
empty
back.
barbell, a barbell loaded to 185, or empty yoke. Make sure it is metal, no sandbags, medicine balls, or anything comfortable.
Leave it to Joe to find a way to cheat.
He did, but it made it harder apparently.
So your time for that iron
That's
mile
way
does not
harder.
count. That is way
I
harder.
mean, I
Front
apparently
rack
made it
is
harder.
way
So
harder.
yeah, but I mean, I have a decent front rack anyway. And then I just want to say, if you do this on the track, you're either the jerk in the inside lane, taking up 3 lanes with a barbell, or
Mhm.
you're having to go to the outside. I was
Gosh,
trying to
after
think
lap
of
2, you want to die.
Yeah. I was trying to think of advice that Jerred wasn't going to completely dismiss when he gets to his turn, because the last couple of weeks he's kind of done that.
Don't do anything they said. Here's how.
So I'm just going to say, go with your gut on the weight. I'm not going to tell you what weight to do it. I'm not going to tell you to go less than what you think. I'm just going to say, go with your gut, because a lot of people do that. And that first time they do it, they get completely their socks knocked off. Yeah. And I think that those stories are always the most fun, and they always tend to hook people into this workout and others and motivate them to do it again. So just go with your gut and warm up your calves.
You can warm up your calves on the walk, man.
Oh my gosh. I said this one is very mental. It can be a mind F. So I agree with Kyle that you should go in that dark place. But for me, I said heavy rock mix always helps me, and it actually helps my internal chatter. It always has, like, music has always helped me push myself in a weird kind of way. So for me, it would be something that Jerred absolutely hates, which is somebody screaming at me. But that is even like for coaching and all sorts of stuff, that's always what I actually like, is I like somebody being hard with me. And I guess maybe the hard rock is like a hard coach being like, don't drop the barbell. If there was a hard rock song that's like, don't drop the barbell, I would have it on repeat the whole time, because
someone in the community is going to do that now.
Yeah,
It's going to happen.
Seriously.
Writing that song.
So, and I agree with Kyle, don't drop it. It sucks so bad. I mean, your hands are going to be tingly and numb sometimes. I try to move them. It doesn't matter how much I move them. It still sucks. Just get it done. And my pro tip is, like, don't walk. Suffer as long as you can. Like Kyle, I shuffle a lot. So it's almost like a fart lick with this, where I shuffle to like the end of the road, kind of walk it out a little bit, move my hands, shuffle again, turn around. Watch out for cars that are parked on the side of the road as well. Jerred.
So Kyle said, wallow in your misery. And Ashley said, listen to the band called or named Wallow in Your Misery. I'm sure that's a band or a song out there.
Probably is.
That genre that you're talking about. I don't have a lot. You hit it all. And Joe's tips were awesome, except for the cheater tip there at the beginning. All good stuff. I would recommend no track out and back, because it eliminates your quitness, your ability to quit. And so just go out and back and wait, whatever you think would be challenging. I mean, it really doesn't matter. You could do a 45-pound bar, and that's going to be challenging for a lot of people. I have absolutely nothing else. Make it hard, and good luck. It's terrible. But that's it. If you've been part of the community for a while, you've already done this workout, you're awesome. If you've been a part of the community for a little while and you haven't done this workout, get it done. And you're all awesome for being a part of the community. If you want to join in on the fun, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial. We would love to have you. And remember to try hard.
Mm-hmm.
Gym Athlete Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Thanks for listening.